Before we begin today's program, I'd like to announce that Michael Tsarion and I will be doing a 6-part program series together here on Red Ice Radio, starting July 6th at 1 p.m. Pacific on bbsradio.com. During this 6-part series, we'll also be having a contest, and you'll have the opportunity to win one DVD per program from Michael Tsarion's acclaimed DVD series, Origins and Oracles. The first person to call us live during the show with the correct answer will win. So make sure you stay tuned to Red Ice Radio and red-ice.net for more information about this series and the contest. And don't forget, our first live program is July 6th at 1 p.m. Pacific on bbsradio.com. To find out more about Michael Tsarion and his work, check out his website, taroscopes.com. Truth against the world.
Hi my friends, and welcome back to Red Ice Radio. Thank you for tuning in to bbsradio.com, or if you are listening through the archives sometime in the future. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and I'm coming to you from the west coast of Sweden, and I will be your host for the following hour. I'm very excited about today's program because one of my favorite scholars and researchers is back on the program. I'm talking about Michael Tsarion. He was first on the show about 2 months ago, and I'm very glad that he's back with us. That first show we did, by the way, is available through the archives, so just head on over to red-ice.net or redicecreations.com to find out more. And make sure to check that out if you're not familiar with Michael and his research, because I'm going to be somewhat rude today and skip all the long introductions and presentations simply because I want to spend as much time as possible with Michael. But quickly, I want to mention that Michael has been very kind to send me a copy of his Origins and Oracles series, and I just want to say how much I enjoy the series and how much I've learned so far by watching it. It's a fantastic series. It's a beautiful production and wonderfully presented, and most importantly, it's jam-packed with wonderful research material. And Michael is doing something few out there have done. He shatters the concept of a clouded past and presents in a coherent way an idea of what actually has happened on this planet, all the way from the ancient world to up to the present day, basically. And he has given himself plenty of time to explore the many topics of in this series, and he leaves no stone unturned, so to speak. It's a library of information and what I guess is called alternative history. And Michael is a unique scholar and extremely knowledgeable about his subjects, and I'm very glad to have him here. So, hi Michael, and welcome back to the program, my friend.
Oh, Henrik, thank you very much. It's lovely to be on, and I'm glad that you received the box set.
Yeah.
If I arrived, I wanted to make sure that you got it.
Yeah.
So that again, you know what we're doing, and that you can pretty much experience, what I've been basically doing in the last 2 years. We're putting that series together. So I'm glad that it arrived.
Great, and I'm so glad to have you back on the program. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and so thank you for taking the time to be here. And to start things off here, there are 1,000 things we can talk about, but we agreed to talk a little about in the beginning here about Akhenaton and the cult of Aton today. And one thing I really like about your website, taroscopes.com, on the page you call Astrotheology is, from what I can tell at least, is that you update and add sections to that as your research progresses and evolves into new areas. And I guess on page 1 there now, the title of the page is Akhenaton, the Cult of Aton, and the Dark Side of the Sun. So
right.
Why don't we simply begin at the beginning to get things going, so to speak, and we don't leave anyone behind. Who is first of all, who is Akhenaton or Aton?
Yeah, Akhenaton is the pharaoh that is probably the most wife, Nefertiti, is very well known. And there's several reasons why that is. There was obviously 32 dynasties of Egypt, and there was probably 3 times that many, but actual scholars recognize 32 dynasties, dating from way, way back at the time of the 3rd dynasty and the building of the pyramids. But at the 18th dynasty, which is only about 2,000 years BC, it's about 1600, 1400 BC, many, many important things were happening in Egypt, and the pharaoh that ruled at that time was Akhenaton. The reason why he is so well known is because Western scholars tend to put a lot of emphasis on that pharaoh, and they tend to downplay and not want us to know a lot about the other pharaohs. So you have to go digging for that. Whereas Akhenaton and his son Tutankhamun, there's a lot of it's by design. It's almost by design that there's a lot of attention focused on that period, and a lot of disinformation and lies are being told about Akhenaton and what kind of a person he was. And he's very much a lionized figure. He's almost like a Hollywood media character in Egyptology. You know, he's the hero, he's the champion. And, of course, the reason why that really is, why they would want to do that, is because he is put before us as the creator of monotheism. And people use that term without really thinking what the term even means. You know, obviously monotheism, one God or one religion.
Yeah.
But we have got to go further than that and really discover what on earth does it even mean to have one religion. What are we talking about here? Now, the Egyptologists tried to explain that by saying, well, it means that everybody else other than Akhenaton was a idol-worshipping, pantheist, who were just these, hideous pagans who worshipped a whole, hundreds of different weird, animal-headed gods. And, of course, that's why Akhenaton stands out, because he was this incredible monotheist who just worshipped one god, the one sun. And this, again, is also lies, total nonsense, because monotheism is not distinguished that way. Akhenaton was not the discoverer of anything to do with a one god or a one solar god concept, Aton, because Amun-Ra had been worshipped in Egypt for endless millennia. And Aton-Ra was always described as, Amun-Ra was always, described as the one god. So even the idea of a monotheistic cult, even the idea of a one god, far precedes Akhenaton. He just did or skewed it a little bit. So anyway, he's a very famous character. And what I've done in my work is that I've, just for people who are maybe completely new to this, why they might be interested in what we're talking about, is because for many years now, and it's in American context, it's probably from about 30 to 50 years, one might look to the works of Eustace Mullins in this country, the first American scholars who started to question what was going on with the secret society symbolism. Shows like yourself, and with the work of David Icke and myself and others, people tend to think that this is a long, thread of research that's been going on, and tremendous and all of this. But as a matter of fact, the occult world, looking at the secret society, what we might call the conspiratorial aspects, is extremely recent. You're talking about within 20 years.
Oh, really?
Well, sure. If you cast your mind back to what was going on in the 1970s and the 1980s with the New Age movement, you would hardly ever find anyone in that entire world movement.
Okay, I see what you mean. Go ahead.
Who dealt with any of this?
Yeah.
So it's very recent. It doesn't mean that there wasn't people who have done it. There has been in America for the last 50 years, going back to certainly I think of Eustace Mullins, and I think of Gary Allen, the senator, and Charles Lindbergh, you see, to a certain degree. But a lot of these people didn't write books. Eustace Mullins did, but a lot of other people who spoke about secret societies and that there was some sort of Illuminati enclave operating in the world did not write it down, there weren't scholars in the way that we are today, where you have internet sites and books on it. So the actual exposure of these things is extremely, a brief thing in time. And therefore, a lot of the scholars and researchers who've been looking into these symbols have discovered that the symbols of secret societies are primarily Egyptian. And like David Icke has said, there's a certain Babylonian component thrown in there. But as a matter of fact, the Babylonian culture arose out of Egyptian culture. So it's basically all Egyptian anyway. So then they said, okay, it comes from Egypt. But my point is, in my work, is like, okay, well, Egypt was, as I said, 32 dynasties long, at least. That's only the official number. And was at least 25,000 years old. So it's impossible to say Egypt and have any specificity in what you're saying, because if we take every age, Henrik, that came after the fall of Egypt, after the last of the dynasties of the Ptolemies in Egypt, the period, what I call the Alexandrian period.
Yeah.
If you take the Alexandrian period, and then you take the Grecian period, and the Roman period, and then the Renaissance period, you know, coming up even into the Dark Ages and the Enlightenment, and then moving into the agricultural age, you know, the classical age, then the agricultural, and then the industrial age, and up into our Silicon Age. If you take all of that timeline, multiply it 3 times over, like multiply all those ages by 3, Egypt still lasted longer than all of that. So
amazing.
When scholars are saying, well, look, there's a pyramid on the dollar bill. Oh my goodness, there's an obelisk on the banks of the Thames in London. Oh my goodness, you know, there's symbolism. There's Egyptian symbolism in the Illuminati houses, or Charles Taze Russell is buried under an Illuminati pyramid. My goodness, and they go, it's Egyptian. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, it's Egyptian, fantastic. Yeah, there are pyramids in Egypt, but that is so blurry and so unspecific and so completely vague. We need to do way better than that. And my work is to take it up forward to go, yes, it's Egyptian, all right, but it's of a very specific point of time in history, and in fact, it's even from a specific being, from a specific person in time. So when we're looking at that eye on top of the pyramid and the missing capstone, we're not just talking about some vague eye of the sun god, eye of Ra, eye of eye of Horus.
Horus, yeah.
Much too vague. This is the eye of Aton, and Aton was the god that was the skewed god of Akhenaton. It was a rendition of the old Amon-Ra cult.
Yeah.
But he basically was saying that the sun on the eastern horizon was what he was now worshipping, and he was worshipping the cult of light, which Jordan Maxwell has gone into many times. And the rising of the sun at the horizon is very, very important. Light from the sun is very important, and light metaphysically is very important.
Yeah.
Because the ancient Egyptians understood that they're not just worshipping external light, they're worshipping a phenomena that has both a physical property and a metaphysical property. And so it is the worship of light, and that's what Luciferianism originally referred to.
Yeah, sure.
Nothing negative or evil in the term Lucifer at all. The Lucifer meant what Christians know it means, son of the morning.
Yeah.
And that meant the sun in the sign of Leo, which opened the Egyptian year. In late Leo, more into what we would call Virgo now, was the opening of the Egyptian New Year. And when the sun rose on the horizon, they called it, here is Lucifer, the sun is born. Christians misunderstand this. There's nothing negative about the term. In fact, Mary Magdalene has been referred to in the Gnostic scriptures as a Lucifer, meaning a light bearer. Jesus Christ is a Lucifer because he is the son of the morning, born of a virgin. The rising sun at the horizon was called the bearer of the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it referred to Leo. Then later it got turned around, and the birthday of Jesus, the Christ, the Lucifer, was replaced with the birth of John the Baptist, which was in the winter solstice. It's a long story. I don't want to get into that, but it turned 2 birthdays around.
Yeah.
And we got the birth of Jesus being in the middle of winter, when in fact it used to be in the height of summer, when the star Sirius was rising in the sky, when the Nile would rise, its waters would rise and flood, which is why Jesus is always associated with wine and the overflowing chalice and the Holy Grail. All of these things represent the flowing waters of the River Nile. All of this symbolism comes from Egypt.
Yeah. And, you obviously going to turn some heads when you say, when you associate both Jesus with Lucifer. But you know... Yeah, sure. You know, the only place that I know of in the Bible that is referred to Lucifer is I think it's in Isaiah 14, I guess. And you know, it's only mentioned once by name, I think, Lucifer. So I mean the connection, I guess, is made mostly outside of the Bible, at least. Isn't that correct?
Right. Yes, it is. And when it's mentioned outside the Bible, it is never in a negative context. It simply meant the high initiate, the supreme priest of the sun, the supreme mediator for light.
Yeah.
And this is a very important concept. So not only will I be turning heads by saying that, because actually a lot of other scholars have said that.
Yeah.
My real work to turn heads is to look, my goodness, can we now understand that the secret society symbols, I don't care what they are, I don't care if they're the Knights of Malta cross, or the double cross of Lorraine, or the cross and the crown, or the pyramid, you see, or the maces, or the dove, because the doves relate to the Davids, who were, the Davids were the Levites